always been of great interest to me. I've absolutely loved Paisley designs ever since I was a child. I did some research about Paisley designs, as I have also been a student of textile history. The first use of the design shows up in the 7th and 8th centuries in the Indian subcontinent, ancient ruins in Tehran, Azerbaijan, Kashmir. The design then shows up in textiles, specifically in those royal cultures there, where they were woven in great detail into shawls that were the province of royalty. So when the East India came into that area in the 1800s and started to take over from the Mughal Empire, these cashmere shawls featuring these woven Paisley designs were super valuable, and they brought them back to England. In fact, twice a year they brought a big load back to London and sold these cashmere shawls for over £100 a piece. So obviously competition is out there for them, right? And the word Paisley itself actually is the name of a Scottish town where they actually made the knockoffs of these cashmere shawls. So the town of Paisley used hand looms, hand weavers from about 1790 until about 1860, 1840, and the looms that make jacquard. So jacquard is a woven fabric that has lots of different layers of threads that run through it. And eventually Paisley specialized in this so much they actually invented new looms that allowed them to work up to 15 different colors at a time into their Paisley shawl designs. But even 15 colors was a really faint number compared to these works of art that were coming out of Kashmir originally as part of the Persian Empire. So the Paisley design itself was associated with the idea of wealth, particularly through this Victorian period, and then eventually made accessible to the masses through printed fabrics, where it lost interest after a while. This Paisley design, particularly after the 1870s, there was a real lack of interest in Paisleys. Everybody had them. In fact, they were so common that we started printing them on bandanas. There's some documentation that even in the colonial period, George Washington had a Paisley bandana. So they became so commonplace, nobody talked about them, nobody used them, nobody made them. And they saw a big resurgence in the 1960s as we started looking back to be inspired by historical artifacts. So the design itself has a couple different ideas of where it came from. Some think that it looks like fig fruit. It shows up in a lot of that Persian artwork in florals, like as twinned with two paisleys together to make blossoms. There is some evidence in one building that's far to the east, closer to China, that the paisley was also used in the kind of yin-yang symbol. But in that area of Azerbaijan and the former Persian Empire in the Indian subcontinent, the shape is also associated with the cypress tree. So the cypress tree typically shows up in motifs as a straight teardrop shape, like the pointing in up. And the belief is that the reason that there's a big twirling end is because when the Persian Empire fell, the cypress tree was bent. And so it's a representation of the fallen Persian Empire. As I said, my interest in Paisley has been strong since I was a child, also an interest in textile history. And so part of the reason I wanted to do this particular craft project is definitely to uphold the heritage around that Paisley design. Interesting that it was the hallmark of master weavers and has now become so deeply associated with folks crafts that are definitely an expression of the master artist. So for this project, these little paisleys are like feathers on the chickens, and these gourds are the perfect shape to make little gossiping chickens.